Hey dancers, welcome back to Broche Banter. I'm your host, Julie. Today, I'm so happy you're here for this inspiring conversation with Grace, a passionate dancer and performer, as we dive into the art of choreography. Discover the magic of telling stories and expressing emotions through the universal language of movement without a single word. Today, we'll explore practical steps to start choreographing your own piece, from finding inspiration to navigating the exhilarating ups and downs of the creative process. A journey that's challenging yet deeply rewarding. Dance is such a powerful way to communicate, inviting you to learn, experiment, and grow with every step. The world is waiting for your unique stories. Bring them to life in your own beautiful way. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Grace. Welcome back to Broche Banter, Grace. I'm so happy to get to chat with you again today.
Yeah, happy to be back on. Thanks for having me, Julie.
We are just coming off the heels of the fourth International Adult Ballet Festival. By now, I guess it's been almost a month, which is really hard to believe. But it feels like it was just yesterday that we were all on stage together. And we wanted to talk today about creating pieces for the stage, creating solos for the stage. This is one of the unique things about the International Adult Ballet Festival is that you can create a work to bring to the stage. I mean, of course, you can do a classical variation and you can pick something that's already been made and kind of do it yourself, or you can make something original. And you've made now a total of 4 original pieces, I guess 5 if you count the casual performance that you did for the friends. And so we wanted to talk today about your experiences with that, your advice for people who are wanting to make something original, and hopefully give our listeners out there some inspiration for the creation process, not just doing a variation, which is obviously super fun, but the creation process of telling an actual story that you care about through your dance and your movement. Let's dive in to talk a little bit about the pieces that you brought to the stage this year. If you would just tell us a little bit about the both of the pieces that you did, and tell us how you got those boots from on to off in 2 seconds in your costume change right on stage. It was very impressive.
I mean, I can't take credit for that at all. Laduca is, where it's at, and the most beautiful dance shoes you could ever dance in. So completely upset. We could do a whole episode just about how much I love Laduca. But yeah, so this year I wanted to pick 2 very distinct themes. And part of sort of looking at how I work with the creative process, everyone works differently, but certainly for myself, I always go by emotion first, and finding the song is the key with that. And I wanted to try to have 2 very distinct sort of characters, basically. So one of my pieces was a musical theatre slash jazz slash contemporary ballet piece, if you can imagine that. And shout out to Karen Estabrook, who took my vision and created the choreography for it. And that was really a very self-empowering, inspiring song. The song was from a musical that had been on Broadway, the musical version of The Notebook. Hadn't seen the musical, but found this track and just thought it was just stunning. And that was the character of, being very self-empowered, very confident, sort of really taking control. And Karen did an awesome job and came up with this idea of having the 2 sections and whipping those shoes off halfway through, so I could do sort of more jumps and leaps and also sort of convey the freedom with the song, which was awesome. And then I wanted to challenge myself and do a piece where, and I refer to it fondly as like awkward contemporary. Like I wanted to think, okay, I've got the empowering character that's, winning at life. And then I want to explore a character that's, desperately heartbroken and sad and resentful and explore that sort of more gritty character as well. And my intention, this is a really strange thing to say, but my intention was to make the audience feel a little bit uncomfortable, in the sense of taking that emotion of when, you're just really down on your luck and you're, a bit bitter about something and you're upset and you're heartbroken and, whatever. You could be heartbroken about a person, about a situation, whatever it is. And to like sit in that emotion for a while. So I didn't want that piece to be beautiful in any way, which is strange because we're at an International Adult Ballet Festival, right? But I kind of wanted to play with the genres a little bit, um, and I add very very proudly that I'm not a choreographer. Like I since I started dancing, I always was moved by the music, whatever style, whether it's ballet, contemporary, lyrical, musical theatre. The music was always sort of the starting point for me. Um, but it was like, I was thinking about how to describe it, but it's like choreography to me is like learning a new language that I hear a song and I'm like, I just desperately want to dance to it, but I don't have the words to the choreographic words, if that makes sense, to go away and sort of dance to it. And I think that comes with practice. And obviously, if you're looking at the professional arena, we've got some just iconic choreographers on stage, film, that's their job, and obviously that should be hugely respected. But I was kind of curious about, okay, I don't have a choreographic background, I'm not formally or professionally trained, but I have something inside of me of like that wants to move to music, and I'm like, how do I interpret these songs? Um, so so last year, so I'd done sort of like little bits and pieces or like vague improvs, just in my at home where nobody could see me. And then coming to the festival last year was the first year where I thought, okay, how do I kind of make a piece of these things? And the two tracks I chose last year were also very sort of different characters, if you will. Um, and I wanted to play around with genres and see what came out really. But I would say, yeah, I go back to the point. I'm not a natural choreographer. I'm not a trained choreographer. But if anyone's listening that's maybe going to come into the festival next year and is curious about it, like I think it's one of those things that you have to go through it to get better. You've got to understand, what how your body moves and what comes out. And I'm sure if you studied choreography, there's certain rules and best practice and things like that. But equally, like with all art forms, like rules are meant to be broken, and it's and in each individual dancer dances individually, right? So that can be untapped. And I would say, yeah, if anyone's thinking about is curious about choreographing for next year, then give it a go, because it's another string to your bow of who you are as a dancer and how you're presenting yourself really. And I think it's one of those things that nobody is ever going to give you permission for it. Like anything creative, really. Nobody is going to say, okay, the time has come. Like you are now at such a level that you're allowed to choreograph. Like so, in a way, you just kind of give yourself permission to give it a try. And I think it was interesting doing having done the 2 years of festival, because you don't really you have to go through it to see what works, what doesn't work, and you learn through that process so much. And I think something like the festival, having that opportunity to have that learning and to sort of, I don't want to say make mistakes, because as I say, choreography is just there are no rules in choreography per se, but just having that opportunity, I think is such a wonderful thing.
So tell me why you find yourself drawn to specific characters or specific emotions. Are they things you want to be able to feel? Are they things you are feeling that you're moving through? Like, what are they stories that you're trying to tell about something in your past and heal from? Like, why do you find yourself drawn to some of these emotions, if I might pry a little bit there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, part of the answer is like all of the above. I think for me personally, because I didn't dance as a child, but I did do theatre, and so I'd always felt sort of that need to sort of perform and tell stories really. And and with music, I mean, the music always, as I say, like is the starting point for me. Um, but it is, yeah, sometimes it's something that a track that really resonates that I think, oh yeah, in, when I was whatever age, that situation happened to me, and how cathartic now to have a song that, when you feel a bit nostalgic, you can listen to and be like, oh yeah, that used to be me. Um, but equally, like looking at different characters, and I was giving some thought, and I won't spoil the surprise if I do get to do what I was thinking for next year. But again, it's most like, yeah, it's a different character, but it's not something I can relate to at all. It's completely sort of new and different, and that will be a challenge in itself. Um, but yeah, there's something about each character, and I think it's that personality, especially when you are doing something or considering something maybe that's more contemporary or more musical theatre, where it can be very character led. If something really resonates, yeah, it's sort of it's fun to sort of play with that character. And equally, you listen to a song, three people could listen to a song and understand meaning completely differently with it, right? That's art, right? um but it's fun sort of to, and I do this with sort of the open classes that I go to that are that have, songs that sort of like contemporary lyrical songs, of like picking a different character or picking a different reaction within the song to like help perform. I don't know if that makes sense, but like um thinking, okay, so I don't know, take a song about heartbreak, okay, and then you could, one time you perform it, you could in your head think that I am the person that's heartbroken, I'm so sad, woe is me. But then the next time you perform it, you could be like, okay, I could be the heartbreaker, and how would I change my movement that way? And so it's like, yeah, it's that opportunity to play with different characters, and yeah, that was the very long answer to the shorter answer, which was yes, all of the things you mentioned. So
I think it was the exact length I was looking for, just some depth around what draws you to it. It sounds like the music is really the spark for you. It sounds like the music sparks something inside of you, whether it's the lyric or the chords themselves, right? Kind of whatever, the music is striking something within you. And then from there, your mind will start to play with like, okay, well, who is telling this story? Who am I in this situation? And kind of build from there. Does that sound like how it usually feels for you?
yeah, exactly. And I think like it's like we all are, multifaceted people. We have different layers to us. And whilst there are certain song types, I say, that would be an easy way to for me to go, oh, I have feelings now, I need to dance, there's different genres that kind of resonate. And, some days I'll be like, yeah, I want to be lyrical and sad, and then other days I want to be like, yeah, and like I'm in the club, like, yeah, shot, or like whatever it is. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know people resonate perhaps or feel themselves drawn to one type of character, but it's really fun to play. Yeah, it's like dress up, with like, yeah, being a child again and like trying all these different clothes on.
Yeah, I love that visual of dress up. Yeah, it's like dress up with characters, right? You get to play a certain type of role, or this year we had the Caraboss, which is like a totally evil character that's just like fun to get to play that and like embody that different style of movement and try to be someone who's totally out of your comfort zone, right? Like dress up, when you play dress up, you'll put on that hot red dress that you probably wouldn't wear out in public, but it's fun to like play that character for a moment, right? So it lets you explore different aspects of yourself in a way that maybe you wouldn't in your regular communication style with people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
When you're thinking about choreographing, I think choreographing, making choreography or choreographing. I think one thing that trips people up is like this blank slate, like looking, I mean, you open up a document and you're going to write something and it's just totally blank, right? I think that can be a very intimidating part of the process. Um, I find that if you can just get one thing on paper first, like you're playing the music and you've got one movement that you like you've got this one lyric in the song that just hits you right in the right spot, and you've got one movement, like you don't have to start from the beginning. You don't have to start from the start of the song. You can start from your favorite part of the song and then build outwards. You don't have to start, you can do the chorus and then the next chorus and then build the middle part of it. Like I think that that process doesn't have to be linear. Whereas I think if you just hit play on a song, okay, what would the first step be? What would the second step be? What would the third step be? It's like, that's just not, I don't think that's just how that, I don't think that's how that works, right? You have to start from the thesis, if you will, and then work your way outwards with the choreography. Is there any other bits that you found to be helpful in your process of trying to think about like, okay, what the heck is this thing? Like, what could this even look like?
Yeah, I mean it's a really good point, and it's something I still struggle with as I go back to that, I'm not a formally trained choreographer, I'm just somebody that feels moved by music and wants to give it a go to try and express myself. But and certainly like it's a work in progress, and I listen to songs where I'm like, it goes back to like that where you can't speak the language. You're like, I really want to communicate, but I don't know how to. So like I definitely resonate with that. Um, and I think, yeah, finding a little bit to start with is can be super helpful. I think improv, like just playing the song and moving and not worrying about what it looks like, but simply just like moving and really listening to like the musicality of the song, because you can listen to a song 20 times and never notice that the bass line is doing this, a wiggly or whatever. That's, I'm sure that's a technical musical term, but like there's different like layers to music, right? And you don't always you hear the obvious thing first. So I think like improv, as much as uncomfortable as it can be, again, is just another skill set that the more you do, like the less scary it becomes. And through that, as I say, you can hear the music, you start to hear the musicality of the music in a different way. And then you might just, come out with something and think, oh, actually, yeah, I didn't know I had that in me, but yeah, that kind of works. Like, and then you're right, yeah, it's like building up on building step by step. The other thing I think when you've decided on your piece of music is to like try to very loosely block it into sections. And again, for me, this is definitely still a work in progress because I'd never choreographed a stage before. But like you can imagine, if you imagine the stage that you'll be performing on, like the different sections of the music, so maybe block them into three blocks, for example, and then think, okay, for block one, this is the energy style of the music. Maybe it's a bit slower, so maybe, I don't know, I'll do a floor bit, and then this picks up, so maybe I'll do some sort of like movement across the floors and maybe some jumps or whatever, and then a third section that is whatever. So I think if you can sort of block it down and then say, okay, I'll work on block two today, and come with, it's tricky because I think come with some of your repertoire, so maybe things that you've done in classes, in ballet technique or whatever, turns and certain movements that you're comfortable with that you maybe want to include. Come with that, but also like then come with a slightly open mind of like, obviously if you're doing, a classical variation is slightly different, but if you're not doing that, if you're doing more like contemporary ballet, like think, okay, all right, well, this is the classical ballet version. What happens if I change this arm or, move this way or change my chin to here, whatever it is, to sort of have that play around. And also whilst you're doing it, it's really hard, try not to be hard on yourself because things are going to come out where you like So, oh, okay, that wasn't dancing. That was awkward, but that is part of the process, and that's how you get to the good stuff, and that's how you find out who you are as a dancer. Like I think it's scary. That's a really scary thing, and I'm not saying it's easy at all, or that I've like completely figured it out, um, but it's so much more fun when you feel like you know your dance identity better, I think.
Well, I think so much of what you've said here is, the process of even like young children learning to communicate, how frustrating it is for someone who's 2 years old and is trying to tell you something but doesn't have the words for it yet, right? Like they know they have this feeling inside and they don't know how to communicate it yet. They don't know how to write it yet, or to speak it, or to draw it, or to whatever it is, right? And they'll just keep trying to communicate poorly, in the beginning, right? Because they don't have the vocabulary or the ability to. And over time, when you become able to express yourself more freely, you become more confident and you become more able to say what you're trying to say. And that sort of angst of like, I need to say this, but I don't know how. That's a very angsty feeling of like, I need to tell you this, but I don't know how to say it, right? That's an agitating feeling that you can have when you're starting to choreograph. You're like, I know I need to get this message across, but I don't know the right way to say it. That agitation, I think, can either have one of two effects. It can either make you stop from trying at all because you're just like too frustrated and overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, or you can let that be the fuel that's like, no, I have to keep doing this until I figure out how to say it like this. Let that drive you, that you have this thing inside of you that needs to be communicated, which is in part why the kids learn how to speak, right? Because they have this thing they need to communicate. They want to say this stuff. And so it drives them to get better tools and to learn how to communicate better and to keep trying and to keep going and to keep doing it. I think that's the same mindset we need. Is like, you will get bigger vocabulary, you will communicate poorly, but you will keep trying, and eventually you'll be able to say what you need to say. And that's a very empowering feeling when you can actually communicate what you're trying to communicate through dance. It's very empowering, but like you said, it's not easy, it's not comfortable, it's a challenging process. Like any process, learning how to communicate is really hard.
Right. And even more so, I mean, I know you've said it 1,000 times and I totally agree with the ethos, but, doing that as an adult, right? Because, that analogy is completely that. But as a child, you're expected to not find the words, and you're allowed, given the permission, the space to try again, and to mess up and, say the wrong words for the wrong things, but, get your letters mixed up. And, it's sort of expected. But then as an adult, if you're, most societies won't allow for that, right? Like, you'll be like, well, you're an adult now, so why are you, talking silly, or, dancing silly, that, they try to use the analogy. But like, it's that. And like, the festival is such a great opportunity to to try, and to go out your comfort zone and know that you're in an environment that it's not just accepted, it's encouraged, right? Like it's we had the watch along for the festival show yesterday, and I was just um yeah, I don't want to talk too much because I'll get too emotional, but like I was so touched by seeing everyone go through their own journey, um and I thought, like, everyone is on their own individual journey. Some dancers have had dancing in their lives, all their lives, very advanced, technically, have worked really, really hard. And then you've got beginners who are also working really, really hard, but have found dance later in life and are on their own, a different dance journey that's their own. And it's like, it's all beautiful, right? Like, and I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but like it is that, like, you have a space where everyone is encouraged, and that has the opportunity to try things, and mess up, and come back stronger, and whatever that looks like for them. Everyone's different. Maybe even going to the festival was the biggest step for them, and that's incredible. And then maybe somebody did a solo for the first time, and that's a huge step for them. Or maybe they did a first variation on point. There's all these different ways that could look. It's not like it's one way. But what an incredible thing to have that space that all these different journeys are coming together, and that they're celebrated. And I love the competition element of the show, and I think having that feedback and having that feedback from industry professionals that know their stuff and can help you improve is incredible, and I love being part of that. But I was thinking about it, like, I hope everyone from the show yesterday felt good, regardless of what went right, what went wrong. It might have gone wrong. I don't know if anything did go wrong. Nobody showed it on their faces if it did. But regardless of any of that, like, I hope every dancer felt that they were proud of their own work. And I think, and that's, with choreography, that's the challenge, right? And I think anything creative, it's so easy to get in your own head with it, and get trapped in your thoughts. And it's funny, I share this openly, but the day after the show, the Friday morning, I mean, like, it's a strange time anyway, because you've been on this like incredible dance high, and you've had, you've made friends, and you've gone to all these amazing classes, and you've done the show, and you've worn fabulous tutus, and then you come to the Friday, and it is a bit sort of like a sort of a jolt to the senses of like, oh goodness, I've got to go back to the real world now. And it's funny, and I'd got in my head a little bit with my performances. Not that, anything went particularly wrong, but I was just not feeling great about them. And then I bumped into Mikey, one of the faculty and one of the judges, and just unprompted, he just shared some really kind words about my performances. And I messaged him afterwards, and he didn't know that I was like going in a shame spiral in my head, very dramatic. But just to thank him, because I think he didn't, sometimes when you're in a creative moment, you get trapped in that sort of thought spiral, and it's exposing, and it's vulnerable, and it can feel uncomfortable, and it's so easy to sort of to criticize yourself after it all. But I would say anyone that's like going through that process or thinking about that process, that like, that's unfortunately, when it's creative stuff, like, that's all completely normal, and it's like, it's part of the process. That you can have days, like with my photography work, I have days where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the best photo I've ever taken in my whole life. Like, oh, put me, hang it on the Louvre, like, seriously. And then the next day I'll be like, oh, I'm the worst photographer in the world. Like, this, I'm never taking a photo again. Like, this is just, what was I even thinking? And it is that. One of my sisters is an author, and she says exactly the same, that like, some days she'll have great writing days where she's like, give me the Pulitzer Prize right now. And then next day she'll be like, oh, I can't, it's a blank page and I can't think of anything to write, and I hate writing, and it doesn't always have to be like that. But I share that because I think anyone that is in that, or considering to those creative pathways, to know that can be completely normal. And a lot of that process isn't going to feel comfortable. But my goodness, it's like, it's worth it. Like, it's definitely worth it.
I always enjoy reading or hearing what, like old artists or old painters thought about their work. And this just seems universal across time, across centuries, across just like any human who tried to create something has this like, my work is amazing, my work is insert expletive here, like between back and forth, between high and low. I think that's super, super normal. And I think after the performance, it's very normal for a lot of people to have a very negative opinion about how they performed it. And I think that even worse when you watch the video afterwards, like, I think because the video is always so different from how things can feel. I think it's also very normal to have a very positive experience after the performance, to be like, wow, that was amazing. I did it. Like, you can feel that sort of accomplished feeling, but it can be, like you said, it's a very vulnerable thing to do, to share what you brought to the stage. And, you can't see how you look from the outside. Like, and even when you do on video, it's not actually accurate. It's still painted with your own idea of how you look on the inside, right? It's still painted and colored with your own opinion about yourself, right? It's not actually truly, you can't see yourself, right? Like, you truly cannot see yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, technically, we truly can't really see the world around us either. Everything is colored with our own thoughts and opinions, but you definitely cannot see yourself. And I think part of part of the artist's journey, like not to get too philosophical, but I think part of the artist's journey is like figuring out what is your own voice and what feels good for you to share, not what it feels good for the audience to hear necessarily, although that is part. The feedback, the external feedback is part of that, right? That you are getting external feedback from people on what, like you said, there's some best practices, there's some things you can do, but also there's this internal of like what felt good to share and like what felt correct, what felt right in your own body to actually have been shared. And I think sometimes those like frustrating feelings can, at least for me, they often mean that I have more to do, that I didn't finish telling this story and that I didn't finish this job yet. And sometimes in the beginning, I would get very down on myself for that, with that feeling like, oh, this, like you feel like garbage, therefore you must be garbage, right? The mind can be so dramatic sometimes. But in some ways it's like, no, I didn't express it the way I wanted to express that. I need to try that again. Or I wanted the next one I'll be able to express a little bit more clearly. And I didn't quite say it. Sometimes I feel like that agitating feeling is just meaning like, you want more from, like you want to be able to communicate more freely or more, like you want to improve your communication skills. I think it can go both ways. I think it's not necessarily a bad feeling, even though it can feel bad. I don't think it's necessarily like a bad thing to feel it.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And at the end of the day, right, it's all information, right? Like you have to go through it to get to get all this information, both, external feedback and also internal feedback. Like you don't know how it's going to feel until you do it, right? And and performances particularly are so funny because I've never been around a dancer that's come off stage and been like, yeah, absolutely smashed that. Perfect. Could not have done it better. I was just amazing. You always, as dancers, we tend to be quite critical. And the first thing that comes out of most people's mouths are like, oh yeah, it was great, but I didn't get my this turn, fell out of my turn. I, didn't do my drum, whatever it is. And it is that like sort of like contradictory, I don't know, like a balance of like, of course, the work is never done in dance, but equally, that doesn't mean you can't celebrate yourself and your work now, right? Like, it's just not, if you waited until you were perfect to, perform or to be proud of yourself as a dancer, then it might never come. But that doesn't mean that you can't be proud of who you are. And I can't remember, I read something online and I wish I could credit this properly, but I saw a post about how I think it was a professional dancer. I have to remember the reference, but she was talking about performing on stage, and I think she'd fallen out of a fouetté turn or something, and her sister was in the audience watching. And her assistant was just like, essentially was like as an audience member, and this is paraphrasing, but as an audience member, like you're not looking for a perfect performer. Like obviously, especially if you're in the professional arena, like you strive towards that, and there is a certain level of expectation. But as an audience member, you want to see the performer enjoying the performance, right? And if they fall out of a turn and they look angry and they look disappointed and upset, then that's not fun as an audience member. And especially with dance, obviously, I keep saying, but like professional arena, there is, rightfully so, a certain expectation and level of training, which is great. But the majority of people in a dance show probably don't have a dance background, or don't have a dance background enough to go, okay, that foot in that attitude turn was sickled, like how dare you, what are you thinking, and obviously there are standards we work towards, but the reality is with a performance is, and the joy and the terror of it is that it's a one-time thing, right? Like no two performances will ever be the same. And so I kind of learned that through the festival experiences of like, you can aim towards, whatever you class as perfection, but something is always going to happen, whether, you'll, I think my costume this year, something went wrong, and I think there was a couple of other dancers' costumes had a bit of a malfunction in this year's show, and and that's the kind of thing you could never really anticipate for, I mean, well, you could guess it might happen, but like if it's not happened before, and I laughed with the shoes, with the boots on that, one of my performances, because one of the rehearsals that I did with Karen, I couldn't get the shoe off, and like that panic set in of like, oh my God, like this is terrible. Um, but equally, that could have happened in the show because I hadn't unzipped them properly. Um, and then, and then that's what it is. It's like then how you're going to respond to that. You obviously don't want to leave the audience members feeling anxious for you, because that's not the vibe that you're going for. Or maybe it is, but certainly not in this case. It wasn't for me. Um, so yeah, it's a hard one. I think the other thing I will say as well, it's not, when you create something, it's not your job to tell others how to interpret it. Once it's, you communicate, you express what you want to do, that's a brave and great thing to do. But you almost have to disconnect from it after that. Like, the art, whatever form, but like the art is out there. People are going to interpret it in their own way. It's almost like none of your business what they think, because art is subjective. There's going to be people that it's going to really resonate with, people that think, no, I don't like this at all, and that's okay, but it's not your job to tell them how to feel.
Right. It's a fine line there between hearing feedback to improve and also hearing opinions about if it was quote unquote good, right? Like if, because the art is good is very subjective. How did it make you feel? Like that's very subjective. The feedback on how it landed or like the way that your communication came across can be valuable to help you get your point across better. But if they liked it, quote unquote, liked it, or if they thought it was good or whatever, like that type of thing is like not as helpful. Like that's like something that I think is what you're talking about, like detaching from. It's like, yeah, if they didn't like it, that's their issue, right? But if they didn't understand it because you can communicate it better, that's like a different type of feedback that can be valuable and can be helpful, right? That type of like an actual critique can be helpful. Where it's like, I think you're trying to show this dynamic here, but you're not big enough, and therefore I think you're not getting the point across the way you wanted to get across. That's a helpful feedback to receive about your choreography. But someone be like, it wasn't my thing. Like it wasn't my cup of tea. Like that's not something that's your like responsibility. It's not their story that they need to tell. It's not their story that they need to hear. It's not like whatever it is. It's not, or maybe it is something they need to hear, but they're too afraid to hear it right now, and so therefore they reject it outright. Like it's not really, like you said, it's not really your business what they think of you, what they think of your art in that way, in like the very subjective way.
Yeah, which is a really hard thing to grapple with, right? Because, unless you're, you know, emotion, like, I don't know, sociopathic, then like we all care to an extent what other people think of us, right? And that's good. I was like a little bit skeptical when somebody's like, oh, I don't care what anyone thinks of me, I'm gonna do exactly what I want. I'm like, you probably do, when the door's shut and you're on your own at night, you probably do care. And if you don't, then I don't know. Like I think it's that I'd be a little bit concerned. And so, but when it comes to art, I think like it is that working towards that detachment, and that's not, it will never be clean and perfect, because we're all human and messy individuals, and we're always going to get affected to an extent, right? But like I think it comes back to like when all is said and done, like, say we're all leaving the festival, we're all on different planes or cars or however we're getting home, and it's like in that moment, like how do you feel about your work? Like, it's great and to get encouraging feedback and to get that feedback, but like, I hope that each dancer is proud of their own work, without the need for sort of, yeah, external factors. But I say that that's incredibly hard to do, and I'm still working on it, but it's good to have goals.
Right, right. Well, and I think over time, as you develop your voice, then you become proud of yourself for speaking your own story or for like telling your own story, regardless if people like it. Right at the beginning, if you're only thinking about if people will like it, which is I think what the beginning stages is like I just hope people like it. That's totally reasonable. I hope they enjoy it. I hope they like it. That's a totally reasonable thing. Like you said, we live in a society of people. The point of performing is to entertain, right? So you hope that they like it. And then I think at a certain point you think like I hope I tell my story how it means the most to me. Like I hope I do my own story justice. And then that can be what you become proud of. And that way, I hope I did this song justice. I hope I told my story in the most meaningful way that I wanted to be able to tell it. I feel like that's where it kind of evolves to let you detach more from that feedback of like that you have something higher that you're aiming for, that you actually care about the way that you were able to tell the story that you were trying to tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. It's definitely such a roller coaster that the artistic process, the the process and the journey. But I think if it weren't a roller coaster, it wouldn't produce the art because sometimes the pain of creating the one art can be the catalyst for the next art, right? It's like it's funny that it just kind of all feeds itself, and I think you can take a break from the roller coaster, but then it always kind of pulls you back because we're humans and we have stories to tell. That's just kind of how it is to be a human. We just have things we need to express. It's just like it's what it is.
Exactly.
I just want to list a couple of other ways that people might start from their choreography, right? Just like when you're just like a couple more tips here. I think people can just start like you tend to start from the emotion and from the music, right? From that as the base. I think you get people who start from the costume, right? Who start from what they want to wear or how they want to look. They'll start from the visual, like that they can imagine this visual, and then they'll find the music that goes with that particular outfit or that particular costume, right? You can imagine the most beautiful tutu, what would go with this? Or you can imagine the most beautiful dress, what would go with this? You might start with a list of steps that you want to challenge yourself to learn, right? Like that you want to be like, I want to try a pirouette on stage. I want to try a fouette on stage. I want to try a somersault on stage. I want to try whatever it is. And then, build around that and think, okay, what outfit would go with this? What music would go with this? What emotion would go with this step, right? Like you can think about a physical challenge for yourself. And I think you can think about also like a person or a piece that inspires you and to kind of think about what you might do as an offshoot to that. So I think there's so many ways you can start with something. I think for most people, they get an anchor point that's like, this is my center, this is what I'm trying to do. And then build from there around that. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter what piece you start. Like, it doesn't matter what section you start with at all, but it's like you have one anchor that means something to you that you want to create around, and then that creation will go from the center out, no matter what that center is for you. But then it just kind of explodes, and then you hop on the ride and you ride the roller coaster all the way until show day and beyond.
Yeah, and I will add, like, I hope I've not been too. I've shared the honesty about it because, I don't want people to. I don't, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I don't want people to feel alone and think, oh, I'm doing it wrong because this isn't totally fun roller coaster. There are parts of it where it's like uncomfortable or upset. And I share that because it's still, despite all of that, it's still worth it, and that's what makes it parts. That's what helps make it worth it, is having those moments. Because if if it's the deep bits aren't as deep, then the highs won't be as high, right? And yeah, I hope that people, yeah, that I haven't put anyone off. I hope I've hopefully encouraged rather than, yeah, discouraged anyone. But because it's totally worth it. And, the world needs people's stories, and the dancers that come to the festival, like, we need your stories, like, being individual and is beautiful, and it's so much more interesting. Imagine if we all came to the festival and we were all the same type of person with the same experiences and the same storytelling. It wouldn't be interesting, it wouldn't be diverse. And I would say, yeah, just maybe if you're new to choreography or new to performing, or and you've got those hesitations, is just consider it, because it's so interesting to see each individual dancer come, and it's what makes the festival, and it makes the world a better place if we share our stories. So yeah, so it's worth all the discomfort. I don't want to put anyone off. because it is worth it.
Well, I think by this age, everyone's created something, right? Whether it's at work or something you've done, like you've done something, and you know that generally speaking, the whole thing is not like rainbows and butterflies the whole time. Like just because you're doing something for fun, quote unquote, does not mean it is all fun. That is like, right, like the end can be very rewarding without having been like fun the whole time necessarily. So yeah, I think there it's really if you treat dance choreography the same as any other difficult project that you've taken on, it will be less jarring when you find difficult parts throughout, because you'll find sticky spots. You're like, I have no idea what to do in this part. I don't know. You'll have no idea for a while. So you just go blah, blah, blah during that part and move on to the next part. Like you'll have spots that you did and then you hate and you have to redo, which means you have to redo the beginning, which means you have to redo the end, which means you have to go back to the drawing board, and someone will look at it and be like, that I don't like that. And you'll feel bad about that. And so then, whatever happens, like the process will continue. But I think like all of that will sound familiar to something else that someone has created in their life. And so it's really like the creative process, and at least how I've experienced it, is the same across all the fields, across all the types of things you create. It's like always the same, like the same general idea. Like you have an idea, you go through the messy middle, you come out the other side, and then you critique the heck out of it, and then you continue on to the next thing. It's like kind of the process as it goes.
Oh, right. And I think, yeah, it's that's so important that the messy middle doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Like I think it's so it could be so tempting to sort of get to the messy middle and be like, okay, this feels bad, like I'm not enjoying it. This means I shouldn't have done it. I bought, like I'm leaving. And you're like, no, no, hang on, like the messy middle, you just turn the corner and then there's like the great ending. Um, but it is, it's tempting to think, yeah, that you're doing something wrong, in that stage. But you're so right, like it's totally a process, and in a way, it like, I don't know, like ups the stakes a bit more. It means more if you go through that bit, and then it's transformative. So.
And then it helps you be proud at the end because you actually overcame something to get to the end. So you're like, yes, like I got, like I did it, right? Then you can be, even if it's like it's a new thing that you're doing, and maybe the beginning, your next one's become way better, but you can still be proud that you got through it and you got to the end and you made a piece that got to the stage and people looked at it and they clapped for you. Like you can be proud of the whole process because you like went through the trenches to get to the other side. So yeah, you can get to the middle and be like, oh, well, I don't know how to do this, or like I don't know how to do this. I'm not a choreographer. I don't know how to do this. I should just stop. And it's like, no, what if you just kept going? What if you made a list of all the steps that you know? What if you made a list of everything your body can do? And what if you made a list of all the things that you were feeling at that moment? And what if you use that list to just try a few more things and try a couple more things here and try a couple more things there, and just use everything that you know and see if you can see, like you generally know more than you think. Like you know more than you think. It's just when you get to that messy middle and you're just like, this is scary, therefore I don't know anything. It's like, no, you're just no. That it doesn't mean you don't know anything. It just means it's hard. That's like not the
Yeah,
same. It's not the same.
yeah, no, completely.
Any other parting advice, Grace, on how to get started with creating a piece and telling your story?
Yeah, I think, you know what, I think with if we're looking at like Broche and the festival for a minute, like the community around is such a valuable tool, and it's probably something I could uh, um take advantage of even more than I do currently, of like, if you're stuck and you've got like dancers block, then like speaking to other dancers and thrashing out ideas and say, I really like this song but I'm stuck, can you give me an idea, or can we just like do a sort of a workshop together. Like I think like voicing the when you're stuck, I think is really helpful, because I think, as I said earlier, like the creative process can be quite lonely in parts, and I think it's so easy to get trapped in your head and then start telling yourself stories about if you're good or bad, or all the stories that the brain tells you. So to speak to other people and use the community, and get their different experiences, and different skill levels and experience levels, like I think is really really valuable. And I say that not just to say, okay, well, look at the most experienced advanced dancer out there that's choreographed the most, or done the most ballet, whatever. Don't always look to the most experience, because they're incredible, but also like it works both ways. Like, like beginners that have choreography ideas. Like I was thinking of like some of the pieces in the show, and like some of the like beginner duets that people brought to the stage, and small group pieces and solos, and that had come from people's hearts. Like it was so moving, and like actually sometimes the more simple things, and I don't say simple in a disparaging way, I say it in a great way, like, but it can be actually more it can be even more powerful. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So don't try not to sort of like typecast yourself and be like, okay, well, I've been doing ballet for a year, so in 3 years' time, I'll consider a solo, or consider, because you're still like in my opinion, in this sort of community, is like every dancer is equal, and every dancer is valuable and valued, and just because somebody's been dancing longer than you, it doesn't mean that your story is less valuable because they can do 28 fouetté turns and you can do a quarter turn. Like it just doesn't matter in this environment, and that's a wonderful thing. So I would say, like, if you are stuck, like, speak to the Broche community, speak to the festival community, and see what ideas. And even if you don't get ideas from them, like even somebody to go, yeah, I'm really struggling, or yeah, my first year of choreography was like this, and I made these mistakes. Having that like support, like emotional support, I think is super important as well. So I'd say, yeah, definitely take advantage of the wonderful community as well.
Yeah, I think with the simple pieces, it's so beautiful. I mean, you think about poetry, right? When you think about writing, someone can write 10 words and it can be incredibly moving. And someone else can write an entire novel with very fancy words that you need a dictionary to look up. And that can also be really moving. But both, depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to convey, if you only know 10 words, you can make a beautiful poem with only a few words. You can
Mhm.
also make a really, like, you can write an encyclopedia if you like it, but they both have something valuable to offer. And I think, yeah, definitely reaching out to people. It's so hard in the creative process. You can feel like you want it to only show someone once you're done, because the middle can be scary and you're showing your ideas when they're a work in progress. But I think one of my favorite concepts from programming, if you're programming and you're stuck on a bug or something or an issue, is called rubber ducking. And the idea is basically that if you just walk over to the guy's next desk next to you and you say, like, hey, here's the problem I have, basically just the act of verbalizing it almost always solves your own problem. And so the idea came that if you just had a rubber duck on your desk and you just told your rubber duck your problems, you would fix it, or you would figure it out just by the act of verbalizing it. So it's like such a powerful act of verbalizing it that there's a whole phrase around it, like that you just go and walk to someone and be like, hey, I'm having this problem and I'm stuck. And you're like, oh, never mind. I'm good. I got it figured out. Like, it's very, very, very powerful to just tell somebody how you're stuck, because then you
Yeah.
have to really force yourself to think, how am I stuck? What is the nature of the stuckness here? And just like putting that into words is actually extremely powerful. Like you said, it's actually extremely powerful to just say, hey, I'm stuck and here's why. And then you either get your own answer or someone else can help you with it. Very
Yeah.
helpful.
Oh my goodness, that's so interesting. And I'll keep going on until you write your book, or like the programmer's guide to life, like tricks that programmers taught me about how to, I want to like read all about it, because you have so many nuggets like that of like business and life and self-esteem. It's so fascinating. So yeah,
Random
so
bits. I
keep
love
that.
my favorite is the binary method of debugging, where if something is really not working, you cannot figure it out, delete half the code. If the problem is still there, put that half back, delete the other half. If the problem is in there, delete half of that code. If it's not working, delete half. And so if you're having, like, I mean, that's how I teach a lot of my classes. Like, if you're having a problem with the pirouettes, delete the landing, delete the takeoff, delete everything. Like, can you just get, like, if the problem is there, delete the other half. Like, just it's just, I find that to be so. If you're having a problem with the choreography, I don't know how the binary method of debugging helps, but that's a core principle that I use, is the binary method of debugging.
Okay, well, when you've got some spare time, and I know you've got so much spare time on your hands, then write your book, please, because I gotta read it. It's so fascinating.
Oh man, it's so funny. Well, thank you, Grace. This was so fun to chat. I hope our listeners got some value out of it, and maybe you're inspired to create something, to bring a story to the stage. It's very fun, very exciting. We're right here waiting to hear it. We're excited for it.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, dancers, I hope this conversation with Grace leaves you super inspired and ready to take the stage. I'd love to invite you to the International Adult Ballet Festival, which offers dancers of all levels the space, support, and spotlight to showcase their choreography and shine on stage. To learn more about the next IABF International Adult Ballet Festival, visit iabf.dance for more information. I'll be back in your ears next week with another amazing episode, and until then, I wish you a very happy dancing.